So today we are going to discuss about the API testing and the importance of API testing and types of API testing. So before getting into the concept of testing the APIs, we'll try to understand what are the APIs and different types of APIs. So here is all about API. API is an application programming interface. So here I'm saying interface is nothing but which connects two systems to communicate each other. So here those two systems we call as a client and server. Client requests for something by making a request, whereas server takes the request and sends the response as per the request made by client, and it processes internally and sends the response back to the client. So the interfacing between these two systems is happening using the programming interface, that is application programming interface. So here we can simply consider that application is a software program where two software programs are interconnected with the programming interfaces, that we call as an application programming interface. So let's consider we built a system. Suppose we built a calculator application which provides services like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So here we only build three things, that is addition, multiplication, and subtraction. So if we are providing the inputs in the calculator, so or in the client server, client system, so here we are entering those two values or three values in the software itself. So that software takes those two inputs, or that application takes those two inputs and sends those two inputs to the server to do some calculation and sends proper response as per this request. So here server contains a specific subservice which serves this purpose to respond as per the request made. So here that subservice is a separate application or the software where it can perform the calculation as per your input and sends back the response. Suppose you send 3 plus 4, so server makes that calculation and sends the response as 7. So here in between these two applications, or in this between these two softwares, a programming interface is working. So this is a bit about the API, that is application programming interface. Then here I shown the examples as Facebook API, Twitter API. So not only these, so these are a kind of famous APIs that usually every API testing course includes. But there are lot many APIs in the world. There are millions public APIs are there to interact with, or to check with, or to verify how the response is coming, how we can meet the request. So there are a lot many APIs out there in the world. So these are the simple examples, that is Facebook API and Twitter API. So I think you could have been eagerly waiting for how actually the API is, that is practically. So let's try to understand with an example first. So So let's see one single flow. Like I hope everyone very much familiar with Facebook. So as I said, API example as a Facebook API. So here I'll try to understand how API works. So we have account in API. Suppose consider. So and we also have a Facebook page, Facebook page, and we are obviously the admin of that page. So not only in the Facebook page or in the in our account itself, in the home page itself. So anything you can take. So suppose if we want to post um, something in our page or in our timeline. So what we can simply do, so we will log in using our credentials, and as soon as you log in, you will be navigating to the home page. So if you click on your profile or the image, you will be navigating to your timeline or your page, your profile page. So where you can have the text box to post something, either the text or the multimedia image or the kind of image which have the background of different colors, or the emojis that you can add, or the photos, videos, or the location you can share, or there are many features that Facebook has been provided to post in your wall. So here let's consider I am posting something like hi, QAFox students, I can say. So this is the text that I want to post on my wall. So we just go to the text box and we can enter this one, and if you want to do some kind of modification, or we can add, if we want to add some background or emojis, we can add, and they can by clicking on the save or the add button, we can post into our wall. So this will automatically shown on the home page of whoever following us. So shown on home page. So let's try to understand what happened here. So here, login, you have provided your credentials, that is username and password, either your email or mobile number, whatever it is, username and password you have provided, and you have logged into your account. And as soon as you are land on your account, it is showing few details like your profile picture and the details, and as well as the text box to post something, either the image, video, or the text. So here in the profile page, you will be adding your text or the image or the video to post on your wall. So this is the simple flow. So here we try to understand the same using the API. So there is an API, that is programming interface to do the same service for us. So what it will do is API, as I said, it's an interface using the HTTP. HTTP is nothing but hypertext transfer protocol. So using HTTP, we will be having some URL like this. So graph.facebook.com. Just consider, don't um, I think much about what is this URL and all. So just consider this is an endpoint. That is me, and so you will be adding some fields like So feels like some ID or anything you can take, and you will be going to add the message. So here is your message. Here is your message. So you are going to use this URI and with the message, and you can post using any of the client. So as soon as you hit the request, you will be seeing this as a post on your page. So the same thing is happening using the programming interface and as well as the normal user interface. So user interface means the GUI that you are using while logging. As soon as you go for www.facebook.com, you will be seeing the page. That is the graphical user interface. Using that user interface also you are doing the same thing, and as well as using the programming interface also you are doing the same thing. What happens is, if you use the graphical user interface in the back end, the same process, the same programming APIs works to serve this purpose for you, even if you use the UI itself. So here this is more like a code related thing that we are doing here. So but here is this completely the void boxing to us, means so we are not able to see any kind of code. We are just doing, so we are just entering username and password and going to our wall, and then we are looking for a text box where we need to post something. So and we are posting, we don't know what is happening inside the inside of that process. So here what is happening is, so as soon as you enter, as soon as you click on add, so it is sending this kind of message to this kind of URL or this kind of uh, service to post this particular message on our wall. So what is happening is, so this URL is used to send your message, that is hi QAFox students, to the server using your client to the server, and server processes that request and understand that, oh yeah, we have to post this particular message on his wall. So server understand that and then post that particular message on your wall. So this is the process which is happening uh, internally inside the Facebook. So but what you are saying is only the user interface. So we can understand how this API work, how we can use a particular client to make this request and to post this particular message on our wall. So we can see in the coming sessions. So we are doing the same kind of flow using the user interface and as well as the programming interface as well. So we will see how we can achieve using the this URI and as well as providing the message using the any of the client like Postman or Swagger. So like any of the client we can make this happen in the Facebook. So I hope you understand the basic thing about the API and how Facebook API works. So we will dig deeper into the Facebook APIs, and we can post something in our walls using API itself, and we can comment, and we can like the post that we did using the API itself, that is without using your user interface, that is providing credentials and going into your wall and doing something. So instead of doing that one, you can also do the same functions using our APIs, using any of the functional testing tools. Those are a Postman or the Facebook itself provides one graph client. So we can use that client, and by using that client we can provide these kind of URLs and the messages to post something on our walls. So let's get back to our presentation. So here is, I can take, I'm taking Facebook API as an example for API and the Twitter API. We are going to explore both the APIs, how they work in near future. So let's coming to the types of APIs. Types of APIs.
Vishwak,
Yeah,
one question.
yeah,
What I see is that, for example, if I take an example of login page,
yeah,
having the username and password fields and a button called login. Okay.
yeah,
So
yeah,
in the UI, if I enter username, password, and click on login button, so in
yeah.
the backend, like a request, API request will be triggered, right?
Yeah, yes, yes, but which won't be exposed, that you can understand what is private API or public API. So that is internally calls API, which takes this username and password and sends to the server. Server understand that, oh, this person is there in my database, so I need to respond with his home page. So if the credentials are fine, then or the valid credentials, then it will show the home page as a response.
Okay. And is there any way to see it on the web page, right? There are some developer tools in different browsers, and then we
Yeah,
can.
that we can see. That we can see in the coming sessions.
Okay.
So how the API is going, and with which kind of a request that is taking and sending it to the server, and how the server is responding to that
Okay.
JSON page, and how our browser converting that HTML page into the human readable way. We can see in the coming sessions.
Okay. Okay, Vishwak.
Yeah. So I have just given insight of how API works. So we will going a bit more technical, how we can actually post using the APIs into using the APIs in our wall in the Facebook. So types of APIs. So here, different types of APIs are categorized depends upon the origin and as well as the accessibility of APIs. So here, local APIs. So as I said, API is an interface between two applications. So here, as per the origin, it is divided as local APIs and web APIs. So we'll try to understand what are the local APIs first. So provides OS services to the application programs. So uh, here I have given the example as MS.NET APIs. So whoever familiar with .NET can understand the things well. So instead of that, we can see some other here. So here the definition of local APIs is saying that provides OS services to the application programs. So let's consider uh, there is a desktop application kind of anything. So here we can take the command line interface. So we can do all the things whatever we can do using the user interface in the Windows. So you can open the folders or you can create the folders, and you can start your applications, any kind of applications. So like that you can do. So here this command line, so as the name itself saying that command line interface. So it is also an interface where you are entering the commands to perform something. So sorry. So you are entering mkdir, that is make directory, um, uh, in wherever location you are want in your hard disk. So here you are using one command and saying to your OS to do something. So here OS recognizes your command and creates that particular folder in your disk. So here interfacing is happening between your tool, that is desktop tool, with your OS. So this is local to that particular environment. So this is one kind of example we can take. So it is into the Windows system, and if you can take the Linux, everything is command based, so that where you can use the terminal itself. So not only this, so this is the default tool, that's why I have taken this as an example. So not only this, if you can take any software that you installed in your system, that requires that requires few OS related features which are required to run on that particular machine. So that's why uh, our local softwares or the installed softwares actually interacting with the OS, then only they will work in our system properly. So the interfacing between that software and the OS is happening in our system. So let's go to the web APIs. Web APIs, as the name itself saying that it is related to web. So you have built one software or the feature, and you want to expose that feature to the outside world. That will happen with the HTTP protocol by exposing your APIs using that HTTP over the web. So that kind of APIs would be developed using the REST type or the SOAP type of architectures. Those I have taken as an example. So as soon as you build your service or the feature or the sub service using REST or SOAP, that you can expose to the outside world. So that we call here as a web APIs, which can be accessible by the outside world. So
Vishwak, I see something like this. For example, if I go to Make My Trip, right?
yeah,
MakeMyTrip.com, I see different flight information over there. So
yeah,
even though the different flight companies have their own websites to display the arrival and departure and the booking things of the details, right? Make
yes,
my so are they exposing their APIs to the
yeah,
Make
yes.
My Trip or so?
Yes, yes. So Make My Trip may or may not be the owner of that particular things to show on his website, but it is showing the information about the different flights. Means it is accessing information or taking the a particular information from the other third party or the other server of other website. So it may be the official website or something else. It is taking or it is accessing that information using one particular API. So it is getting the information and showing on their web pages. So here types of APIs based on accessibility. This you can understand easily. So these are the public APIs and sorry, so it should be R here. So public or open APIs. Public means which is publicly available for the outside world. So as I said, here is a Facebook API. So they have given few permissions for few APIs uh, which are available to their users. So like that, in outside world, if any company or kind of Amazon you can take, or kind of take any kind of tech giants, so they will be using APIs to expose their services to outside world. So if you can take the Google Maps, that is very much familiar. So if you can take any website or any company website, you will be seeing in the contact information, you will be seeing the Google Maps page. Google Maps iframe. So there itself, in their website itself, you will be able to see the Google Maps. So how Google Maps provide that service to these people means, so Google Maps exposed that particular API to use by this particular website. So what this website will do is will integrate with the Google APIs and exposes that particular location using their APIs into these into their official website. So people may have seen this kind of things in many public websites. So publicly available APIs which has no access restriction here. So anyone can use without using any authorizations or authentications re uh, required. So here other thing is the partner APIs. Partner APIs which are completely related to the business business partners, whoever there in the technical world. So they used to build their own APIs which are required to serve their purpose internally. So they will share with some kind of authentications or some kind of legal agreements. They will develop their APIs and they will use those APIs internally, and they do not give access to those particular APIs to the outside world. And the next is internal or private APIs. These are completely internal to the small or to the organization itself. So those we can simply call as a in-house APIs. So which are completely restricted. So even with the authorizations or authentications, you couldn't able to access these APIs. So I think so far so good. If you have any doubts, you can ask about these things.
Vishwa, can you show any real-time examples for these three types of APIs that you are mentioning here, like public, partner, and internal? Do you have any examples for these things?
So as I can say, partner and private, which are specific to the organizations, I can't show, but I
Okay.
can show the APIs which are publicly available. So I think I'll show that. So I think you people are able to see the Facebook for developers page. So here is the developers page. You can see the APIs, deleting API. You can delete what you posted. So here is delete the method and using the HTTP. So this is the URL actually. So graph facebook.com by this particular version and followed by the post ID that you posted on your wall. So as soon as you hit the request, that particular post is will be deleted from your page. So like that, so it responds. If the post is available and is deleted, then server sends the response as success as true. So this is the JSON kind of format. You will understand later. So now this is updating. So if you posted for if you posted like hi QAFox students, and then if you want to update that message, you can do using the same post ID. So here you can use the same post ID and you can provide the message like this is a test message using the same kind of URL graph.facebook.com by so v3 by post ID like this. So like you can do. So if that updation is succeeded, then you will see the response as success equals to true. Like that you can comment, so you can see the insights, likes and replies and reactions. You can see everything using that particular endpoints. So these are the APIs, few public APIs available for using the Facebook. So going further, API testing. What is API testing? So it is simply nothing but testing is simply nothing but verifying for the expected. So whether the expected response is coming or not. So yesterday we have discussed about the different types of architectures. Those are 1 tier, 2 tier, and 3 tier. So here you can see the 3-tier architecture here, where actually API testing is performed. So here, this is the database layer and the business layer and the presentation layer. Presentation is nothing but everything is encapsulated, and it is showing only the user interface, that is GUI to the user. That is nothing but presenting all my features using the UI to the particular user. So that is nothing but the presentation layer, where it only deals with user interface with the user. Hence the testing of UI is required. That's why here is the GUI testing performed here. Whereas in the business layer, where the logic performed, so which we called as the application layer or the logic layer, where actual calculation or the actual logic, business logic happens and sends the particular response in this area. So this we can also call as application layer, where API testing is required, and the database layer, obviously the last thing in the 3-tier architecture. So we can see the definition here. API testing is intended to reveal issues, inconsistencies, or deviations from the expected response for a particular request. So it is such a simple thing, but the testing is the huge one. So why actually we are going to do API testing at the application layer? So we will try to understand whether it is a black box or the white box. So sometimes we can call it as a black box, and sometimes we call it as a black box as well. So this is the kind of which is related to two things. So here if there is an API we request using few parameters, and we are getting something as a response, it's fine. If we know only those things, then we consider that as a black box. Otherwise, we are requesting something with some request parameters, and we are getting into the code how the response is, how the that particular API is working internally, and sending the response to the user. If wherever the code interacted, or wherever we are going to see the code to verify the serialization of that particular request, that comes under the white box. So here API testing is not such simple as like a definition here. So it is a big part in developing the APIs, because APIs is not just interacting with a single device. These are interacting with many devices if we exposes publicly to the outside world. So you are just developing your API to serve only some single purpose, but that single purpose or the single feature should be usable by every person outside the world. So in that case, they may play with that particular API with any kind of attributes. In that case, it should ensure providing the facilities as per the valid parameters. So anything could happen if you publicly provide that particular API. So they can do hacking, or they can do different type of testing on it. So they can perform anything on API. So that API should be able to verify, or should be able to ensure to provide a proper response to valid parameters. So we should avoid any kind of security things, or we should able to. So if we are building an API, means we should be provide that functionality to provide extra security while going into the outside world. So that's why which requires huge testing or the continuous testing before going into the live. So this is about the API testing, and we will go into the um, other topic in the API testing is why API testing. So that is the importance of API testing or the advantages of API testing. So before getting into this topic, we will try to understand where actually the uh, APIs are used. So here you can see one image. So here he is using one service that pouring, like it is shown in the image itself. So using this particular API, so one device is able to show graph like this, and the other device is showing like this, and the other device is showing that, but the input is same, but converting that response from that particular API into their usable way. So here in the same, in case of Google APIs, that is Maps APIs, so this particular system will show some location, and this particular system might show some other location, but here using the API is same, but they are using for their own purposes. So here in this case, this API is used in a distributed system. Here I only shows the PCs, but in case of devices, in case of different type of devices, either it can be Android or iOS, tabs, or many devices are out there in the world. So in every device, that particular API should serve the same purpose. So if you can go to the QAFox website, if you want to see the location where actually it is located, so there will be a location provided in that could be accessible in your computer, and as well as if you want to see that in your mobile, that should be available in your mobile as well. So as soon as you are able to see that website, means you are able to see every services that provides. So if that particular QAFox is accessing the Google Maps API and presenting their location in their website, should also be available in each and every device that you are using. Then only we are properly providing our services to the user, then only the business or market will be increased. So in our case, it might not be that much useful to share maps, I mean to share the locations, but in case of Amazon, or but in case of any other websites like Flipkart or some Paytm, so they obviously needs tracking of that particular location or the location of their business units where actually they are located, like that. So they need these kind of features to there in their website. So we are using our APIs in a distributed systems publicly. So in that case, it requires a specific kind of testing apart from UI. UI is just if suppose there is a login page, we are just entering username and password, and we are validating with boundary values or with a kind of invalid values, and then the valid username and password whether the happy path is working or not. That's it from the user interface. But if you can take the API which is actually performing inside that particular login thing, so we need extra testing or kind of continuous testing which is needed to perform testing on the API. So what actually it will do if we can do API testing for your application? So here it saves time, means obviously saves money. Saves time means why it is saving the time means, so we are developing the API and exposing to the outside world, and someone in the outside world is able to use that API and using that API to provide the particular service into their website. So here what is happening, we are not concerning about the user interface that those people are developing. but we only consider about our service that we are exposing to the outside world. So in this case, if you are tested, even if inside the organization itself, if you tested your API, and if you have written a collection of test cases, or you have automated with a collection of test cases for a particular API, then you can avoid, then you can do testing UI a bit less. Depends upon the functionality, depends upon the feature that you are developing. So if you test the API completely, you can reduce the time, you can reduce testing extra using the UI, the functionality of the API. So it saves the time in this case. And the language independent, hence any language would be used for automation. So you can develop API in any kind of language, Java, PHP, or Ruby, or any kind of language you can take. But inside of API, you only be using the JSON or XML, or the interfacing languages. So you can develop your API using any other languages, but you should be able to use XML or JSON as the communication interfaces between two systems. That's nothing but, if you have an idea of understanding XML and JSON, then you could be able to do functional testing with them, or you can do automation testing with them, irrespective of the development language that developers has been used. Okay, so that is the thing here. And this facility also have been provided by the API test. Then integration of UI takes less time. This is obvious. So if you tested your API properly, then you can say, yes, my system or my subservice or my whole service with all subservices are stable. So if you are confident enough to go to live or the prod environment, then before that you could be able to integrate your services to the UI, and you can go to the live environment with less time. So here other is the test core functionality. Yes, business logic lies in the application layer itself. So here we can test the core functionality using the APIs. I'm seeing one question in this chart from Radhika. So can you please give me example of an API test scenario that is not covered in UI testing in login feature example? Yes, yes, I'll give the example. We'll try to explain this example practically when we are going to explore those public APIs. Before that, I'll try to explain this thing orally. So you are saying that you need a test scenario which which won't be covered under UI. So yes, we can do that thing. Suppose in the JSON or the XML, you can provide, suppose API exposed your username as some string, but I can test that with empty kind of things. So by providing the null or by providing the empty itself, that means double quotes, as a value to that particular username, that you can't give from your UI. If you give UI, if you give that thing in the user interface, that is null or giving nothing in the username, UI itself thrown error, like enter something, then it validate, otherwise it won't. But in case of API, it validates whatever the value that you provided and provides the response from the server. So we actually do that kind of testing. So if suppose some outside person apart from the organization, they could do this kind of testing, they could do this kind of penetration into our APIs, so it will result in vulnerabilities in APIs. So we can do this kind of testing. I hope I answered your question.
Vishwak, let me pitch in.
Yeah.
Actually, as you mentioned some penetration thing, right? So I just pitched in here. So what we generally do as part of security testing is that we generally proxy the request. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
For example, you provide the username, password, and click on the login button and proxy the request. That will get captured into the some proxy tools like WebSuite or so, where
Yeah.
you can modify the parameters. For example, username and password parameters, you can values of them you can modify.
Yes. Yes.
So the client may have some validations, client side validations.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so from the UI, you will not be able to test because client will directly throw an error saying that you cannot provide a single quote here or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that.
So
But when
those
you,
are the yeah.
yeah, but when you proxy and capture that in the two proxy tools like WebSuite or so, so
Yeah.
before going to the server, request going to the server, we have folded that request in my WebSuite proxy tool, and there I have the facility to modify that. And
Yes.
according, even though the client side validations are not allowing, and then try to hit the server, and I can see from
Server should have that validation to
yeah,
respond.
server side also there should be some validations. Otherwise, things will go wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's where, right, whatever the example you are giving will helpful. Mm, uh, what is there a server side validation or not, or something that can be checked, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So allows faster releases means as soon as you develop APIs, you will do the testing, which is takes less time than doing UI testing, and you can release your services as fast as possible. And then in order to provide stable services for distributed system, so we already discussed about this point. So you are providing a single API, that single API is serving many serving the many serving your functionality to the many companies outside. So it is used in the different distributed system. In that case also, which we ensure that by using API testing, yes, my service is stable. So the next is testing API assures to integrate with other services seamlessly. Yeah, yes. So if your API contains any bug or issue in your system, then you couldn't able to integrate with other services internally or in the outside world itself. So a stable API which is required to integrate with. Next is continuous testing results in quality of APIs. This is obvious. So not only in the API testing or in kind of any kind of API, any kind of testing like user interface or automation testing, any kind of testing you could take. Continuous testing is required for the quality of that particular system. So the last thing is the very important thing. API may include single or multi-line path towards server to receive response. Suppose I made a request saying that please get some details. So I have provided some ID to the our server, but our server may or may not contain that particular details which we provided. The ID. So if that ID related details are not present in the internal to our system, then that server makes another request to the other server. So that may know, yes, this particular ID is available in this particular server. So then it gets the information from that server and provides that whole response to us. So it may be the single path with the client and the server, and it may be the multi-line path from client server and the other server or the other server. So the whole path should be tested. The whole path can be tested using the APIs. So these are the points that we can consider under the importance of API testing. So not only
So,
this.
so Vishwa, whatever you are saying is that single means straightforward, like in a single attempt things will come, whereas multi-line path means connection of different features you are saying.
Yeah, yeah, it can be different features. It can be the services which actually our internal server may or may not have, can be used from the other system. Yes, the features.
Okay.
So let's slowly getting into the continuous topic in the API testing. Keep in mind below points before start testing the APIs. So which is actually required if you are very new to the API. So setting up the testing environment. So developers develop the APIs and exposes or they will give the access to us. In case of UI development, you can directly see the UI. UI means user interface. So suppose developers developed a login page, you will be able to see username and password, whether it is showing or not, any deviations from the expected behavior or not. You can directly able to see that user interface. But in case of API, you could not able to see your APIs on any user interface. So there is no user interface present in the API. That is a big obstacle for the testing of API. So in order to do API testing, you couldn't do directly using any user interface. You should use a client. A client is like a postman or the swagger. So we will discuss in the coming session. So we need that client to perform the testing of APIs. So we have to set up that particular environment in our local system to verify the developed APIs. So what actually developers gives, they will give some endpoint saying that, so this will get the information if you provide your particular ID from the server. So they will give only that thing, that HTTP URL and followed by the request parameters if they want to provide with the request. So they will give only that information, that you don't know where you have to place and where, how you will get the response at all. So which kind of server that you have to use. So they will say the server, which kind of server you have to use, but how you can make a request. We need a environment to set up in our local. So that is kind of, you can use automation tools directly, or you can use the functional tools like Postman and all, which we need to install in our system. Next is test the happy paths to make sure nothing is broken in straight away test. Yes, so which is obvious when you are going for the when you are going to start testing your APIs. When you are start testing your APIs, whether suppose your API is like there is a service which provides a collection of or the books that are available in your online store, in your online store website. So there is an API, get API. So what you will do, you will simply make the request and you will get the response back with a list of books. So whether it is happening or not, this is a simple happy path. You are requesting with the valid response, valid request, and you are getting whether you are getting the valid response or not. So this is a primary thing, whether it can be testable or not.
And Vishwa, actually in real time, right? I saw something like this. Like a developer will be sharing the developer who is developing this APIs, right? He'll be sharing a document or something where all the requests, responses, header values, all those things will be provided to us, and
Yes.
and from there we need to derive some test cases, and
Yes.
in some of the test cases will be like direct pass, like a direct login to the application, and a few are like negative scenarios and all, right?
Scenarios. So we can so documentation can be provided either by product owner, high level documentation, and further developer develops that as per the requirement and provides the specific solution to the particular API in the documentation itself. So as per the documentation, they will provide the happy path case as well. So once you are able to hit the happy path and you are getting the valid response, then you can go for the negative cases, how you can fail the system developed by the developers using different kind of testing. Next is the collect the business data required to test API in different ways. Yes, business data is nothing but here in terms of testing, it is a test data which is required to test that particular API. So every API requires a unique set of data where that test data is required for that particular API to verify, to ensure the quality of that particular API. So this we can practically see while exploring the APIs. So be in mind about the audience our audience of our business is going to hit. Yes, so our API can be used by different system or different companies in the different ways. So before testing, we should see the usability of APIs as well, and we should mind about different services that our API provides. In that way also we have to test the API. Next is type of environment where our APIs would be used. It can be different type of devices where environment will be different. It can be Windows or Linux or in our PCs, so that environment also different. Or the system, the people who are developing with a different kind of languages, so that could be different. So we should keep in mind while testing the APIs in this case as well. Setting up priorities of APIs and their testing. Yes, so from the positive scenarios onwards, we have to look for negative and the corner case scenarios where actually it hits and where actually our API is serving the response from for the other API in the internal or the outside world. So we have to look for the priorities and prioritize our testing or the test cases that we should write for the API. As per it, we should test the API request and its corresponding expected response. So we should be careful about request and the response that we are getting as per the request made. So if you can as it is not an user interface that you request something and you are getting, and you will be easily able to see that. But here is whole thing is about the JSON or XML. Whole thing is response coming from the server itself is XML or JSON. So it is all about code. We should be carefully see whether we are getting the proper response in terms of XML or JSON as per the request made. So we have to be careful while doing the API testing. Interconnection of APIs. So this is the multi-line path. So if you are, so you have to there are two features. Suppose let's consider we are building a notifications API. So in that notifications API, you add a subservice as SMS and you added an email service. So you have built your system to serve the two purposes, whether this integration with your core part is correctly happened or not. If your email sending part or if your email API is anyway interrupting the services or SMS API or not, we should check that as well, because our own single core part is providing two services. So that's why we have to verify the interconnections of APIs and the integration of APIs which required to test. Any difficulties in testing APIs? So test data is the primary part of API testing. So if you can if you are doing with the different kinds of test data, you will be getting a few accessibility issues. In that case, you have to resolve with your developer whether this particular attribute or this particular negative test case is valid in case of our APIs or not. In the perspective of business, that we have to check and verify thoroughly. Set the boundaries for testing, that is like what to test and what to not what not to test. So this is a kind of boundary value analysis, whether this can be tested with this API or not. As per the business requirement, we have to check, and we should keep a boundaries. So we can test one single username field with many values, but which require a boundary where product itself says, like if you can take one example like email. So email text box you are testing. So in that product itself says that it's okay any kind of domain other than Gmail or Yahoo. So they can so if we can give @1234.com. So if as per the business requirement, if we are accepting that one, it's fine to test with them. So otherwise, if they are not accepting with 1 2 3 4, if it is there in the business requirement, so we could avoid doing the same kind of testing. So we have to set the boundaries for our fields which are available in our request that we are making towards the server.
So,
Next is
so
discuss.
Vishwa,
Yeah,
like there's something like client side validations and server side validations, right? Uh,
yeah, yes.
so is it compulsory to have the client side validations and the server side validations for both the
Yeah,
case, for
yes.
every case, or it's like there may possibility that like client may think only to have the client side validations and few validations only at the server side?
Can
Because
say
why I'm asking this, because while testing this API scenarios, right, I may alter the parameters sometimes.
yes, yes, yes,
I may
yes.
provide some invalid characters. For example, email address is there. So at client, if I try to provide in the UI some email address in a wrong format, it will inform me, right? So same
Yeah,
thing. If I bypass that thing and then try to provide that as part of the API request,
yeah,
so
yeah.
can I expect the same thing there, or it depends on the business requirements?
So here client side validations means our browser kind of things, and the server side validations are still there. So in the client side, so we will try to understand the difference between them first. So in the user interface, client side validations is like a basic checks, like basic checks. If you can take the email text box, so if you do not enter at the rate in the whole email, so it will checks that, so you have provided a you have not provided a valid name, like that it will show a valid comment to the user. So it is like a basic checks, where in case of APIs you will be directly showing a particular error, like method not found or the server error. So those are may not be readable or directly can't understandable by the user. So in that case, what we are doing is we can do all kind of validations from the server side, but we will also do the client validations to make user understand that you are giving a invalid input. So we are giving some uh, easy comments to make them understandable by the user, while going for the server side validations you will not get all kind of validations. You will simply get a server error or some other error. So these errors may be, of type 3 to 4. So in case of any invalid inputs, server throws those kind of exceptions itself. So it is easy for server side to validate whether we are requesting with the valid parameters or not. So yes, from the server side we provide all kinds of validations, but from the client side what we are doing is, so we are providing validations as per the input, that validations more human readable.
Okay, Vishwa.
Yeah. So discuss with the developers for APIs functionality and for corner scenarios, which is must. And do performance and resiliency tests. This is completely related to performance. I think we will going to cover this kind of tests in our course itself. And rules and regulations to avoid loss of money. Yes, which is very much required. So suppose there is an SMS API, so we are keep on sending the SMSs. If the SMS cost is some 5 or 6 rupees per SMS, so if we are sent um, uh, lakhs of SMSs using some performance test or resiliency test, which is a huge loss of money. So in that case, so we should not avoid doing the performance test. We should do the doing the testing of APIs, but with some other parameters which is not actually cause us. So we should be very careful while doing the testing. So next and the last concept is different types of testing. I think we can see these types of testing, and as well as the best practices that we can do on API in the tomorrow session. I hope everyone is clear with so far concepts related to API testing. That is a few points to keep in mind before starting the API, and importance of API testing, and what actually the API testing, where we are actually doing in the whole system, and as well as about the API. So if you have any doubt, you can directly ask, or you can post that. From the Tuesday onwards, we will be going parallelly with the practical things, because which are very much needed. So that's why um, we are going into the theoretical parts. So if you are able to understand one thing, then only you can understand the other things in this. So if we have learned about the client server architecture, then only you could be able to understand so where you are actually doing the API testing. So like that, every part of these concepts are interconnected. So we almost done with the theoretical things. We, from the next session onwards, we will be seeing the practical things. I tried showing the things practically. So but from this next session, we will see the practical things parallelly with the theoretical concepts.
Thanks, Vishak. We understood whatever you said today, and those are very basics. We feel like things are
Yeah,
very clear for us.
yeah,
And I
thank you.
don't we don't have any more questions. It seems like because we didn't get any questions from others.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, that's fine for today, and we can wind up.
yeah, I'm seeing one post in.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we
No,
have
no.
okay, so you
No,
can answer that.
let me answer that.
Yeah, yeah.
Guys, this is the last demo session we have. That this is the third demo session we had today. So the next session will be on Tuesday, and those are going to be the premium sessions. Like for first three sessions so far are the demo sessions, and we'll have a gap of 3 days, right? Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and Tuesday we'll start the premium sessions. And from there onwards, right, including weekends, that is Saturday and Sunday, we are going to have the sessions. This is the plan, guys. Any questions about the plan or something, guys? Yes, at same time. But premium sessions are going to start from Tuesday morning.
Oh, Arun, once the premium sessions start, do we have classes on Saturdays and Sundays also?
Yes. We have the classes on Saturday and Sundays. Because if we miss any sessions, right, it may delay our course. So that's the reason we have opted even for Saturday and Sunday.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's just a 1 hour class. It's not going to be like 2 hours or so. It's like whatever you are seeing in the demo sessions, right? It's going to be the same 1 hour class every day. So you can spare 1 hour and then you can enjoy the day. Mm, yes, duration is going to be 2 months because it's not only one thing we are covering, right? We are covering a lot of stuff in this same course, like not only REST assured framework also. We are also covering the Apache HTTP client and some concepts of JMeter and all those stuff. So SOAP UI is also there. So to cover all these topics, it will take definitely 2 months. So as named, this course is going to be an all-in-one course where you have to learn. We'll be explaining you like end to end whatever that is being used in the industry as part of the API or API automation will be explained. Whatever that is surrounded around the API is the main motto of this course. And we are going to make it as practical as possible, guys, because we have real-time experience on working on this. So Vishwak has that real-time experience. So we'll be making this course as practical as possible. So any other questions, guys, about the course? Yeah, I will be getting in touch with you guys after this session, and we'll discuss in personally about the payment also for attending the premium sessions. Yeah, Vishwak, this is for you. Like Venkat is asking a question.
Yeah, we are covering multiple frameworks. So with the HTTP client and the rest assured, and we can see some basic structures of JMeter, Fiddler, and as well as Postman. So it includes multiple.
Any more questions, guys? Any more questions? Okay, looks like we are done with the questions, Vishwak. We can wind it up for today, and then we'll meet on Tuesday morning, same time. We'll start
Yes.
the premium sessions as discussed. Okay, let's wind it up.
Yeah,
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 see you guys. See you everyone in the premium sessions.
yeah, yeah.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.